All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College EWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I have been creating a series of video presentations that are based off of the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I'm coming towards the end, and I'm doing in the server-side programming section under the Express Node.js section, we're going through the local library tutorial, and I'm in part 3. All right, so open a command prompt and navigate to the library, or to the directory where we've created our skeleton. Well, I've got this still running, and I'm going to stop the run. And I'm going to do an npm install Mongoose. All right, looks like it worked. You don't have to do this, but I always, especially when I'm doing this in front of a group of people, I like to come in and double check and make sure everything is working the way that I think, at least, that it should be working. So there it is. So let's open up our package.json and see if we have added that as a developer dependency. And there it is. All right, so that was just added. I should be able to close this now. All right, open our app.js file at the root of the project and copy the following text below where you declare the Express application object. In other words, after this line, replace the database URL string with the local URL representing your database. All right, so as it says, the information that we got earlier. So I'm going to grab all this. And I mean, you're going to see it anyway. It's no big thing one way or the other. I just set my password to JP Scott Rankin. So, I mean, like I said, that's not a big thing. But let's come in here and let's see. In fact, I think I've been doing it from in here, correct? Yep. So let's open up this is the My App. So let's open a new folder. And that's our Express local library. Is that it? Local library tutorial? Yep. All right. And let's see. This looks a little funky to me, so let's just do this. I'm going to close this. Open this up. There's our app.js. I'll just open it up here inside of Notepad++. Okay, so right underneath our var app equals express, we're supposed to put in this. All right, and they want us to remove and replace the insert your database URL here with our actual URL, which is here. So there's that. All right, let's just continue on then. As discussed in the primer above, this code creates a default connection to the database and binds to the error event so that errors will be printed to our console. All right. We will define a separate module for each model as discussed above. Start by creating a folder for our models in the project root, and then create separate files for each of the models. So we're going to make a models folder and then create these files in there. So let's, if possible, do this as simply as possible. So let me move this. I'm going to move that way over. All right, so we want to come in here and we want to add a new folder, and that new folder should be called models. All right, and probably it'll be a little easier if we do it from here. So let's do a CD to models, clear, and let's touch author.js. We'll touch book.js. We'll touch book instance.js, and we will touch genre.js. I think that was all of them. Yep, looks like it. So let's do an ls minus L and make sure they're all there. And there's author, book, book instance, and genre. Plus I can also go in here in my models and double click, and there they are. All right. Copy the author schema code below and paste it into your author.js file. It defines an author as having string schema types for the first name and the last name. And you'll notice they're both required, and the maximum size is 100 characters. We've got a date of birth, which is not required, but it's of type date, and a date of death, which is not required, and it's of type date. All right. We've also got a virtual method in here where we can basically get the author's entire name. So it'll be his last name, comma, his first name. And we'll have a thing in there that'll figure out the author's lifespan. In other words, how old he was. All right. So let's just grab all of this information that you see right here. Whoops. Copy to the clipboard. Let's come into here. Do a file open, and let's go into our models folder. And this was the author.js, and let's paste that in. All right, so the first one is now done. Declaring our URLs as virtual in the schema is a good idea because then the URL for an item only ever needs to be changed in one place. At this point, a link using this URL would not work because we don't have any routes set up yet. We'll do those in a later part of the later tutorial. All right, copy the book schema shown and paste it into models book.js. Most of this is similar to the authors, and it is pretty much set up the same way. Copy. So let's do a file open, and we will open up book.js, paste that in, and save. The main difference here is we've created references to two other models. Author is a reference to a single author model object and is required. Genre, as it says, is a reference to a genre model object, but we haven't defined genre yet. We will shortly. All right. Finally, copy the book instance schema code shown below and paste that into your book instance. This represents a specific copy of a book that someone might borrow and includes information about whether the copy is available, on what date is expected back, and version or imprint details. So let's grab this, copy to the clipboard, bring up book instance, paste that in and save. And as the author says, the new things we show here are the field options. We've got an enum, and again, an enum is a user-defined data type. This allows us to set values of a string. In other words, available, maintenance, loaned, or reserved. Those are the four possible values for that variable, basically, that's known as status. And default. We use default to set the default status for our newly created book instance to maintenance and the default due back to now. All right. Then open the genre. Okay. It says And we're supposed to create this one, I guess, ourselves. So let's start by making sure, so book instance has been saved, book has been saved, author has been saved. And author was fairly simplistic, so I'm just going to grab all of the author one. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to open up genre and start making my changes. All right, I still want to require that. I still need this. This will become genre schema. All right, down here, this will be genre, as will this. All right, so let's just take a quick look at what else they tell us to do here. The model should have a string schema type called name to describe the genre. The name should be required and be between 3 and 100 characters, and declare a virtual for the genre's URL named URL. So let's try to make and keep this as simple as possible. All right, we're only going to have one field in here, so I'm going to get that. I'm going to get rid of everything else, and we'll fix this in a minute. And this URL, just what they had here, I think that's what we're going to want. So let me make this a little smaller. So the model should have a string schema type called name. So we've got that. Should be required. All right, and it should have a min length of 3 and a max length of 100. We're also to declare a virtual for the URL named URL, and I would think this is going to change to genre, and we already changed genre and genre there, so I think that's everything. So let me show you quickly what I did, because we're just about done with this section. So I created the new one, but rather than starting from scratch, which I could have done, all right, I copied over one of the other ones, and you'll notice author, if we go up to the top, and books and book instance, they all start with var mongoose, so that brings mongoose in, and then we set up a schema on each one of these. All right, so that's what I did here. Then you come in here and you're setting up basically the individual schema. Well, since this is the genre, I called it genre schema. We were told that it had one field and one field only in it called name that was a string required with a minimum length of 3 and a maximum length of 100. All right, I don't think we need that comma there. And then we were supposed to set up a virtual URL. Again, this was taken right from the one that was in here before. I just changed authors to genre. All right, and then in here, we wanted to make sure genre is the way we're going to refer to it. And genre schema right there is the genre schema right here. So I'm going to save. All right, that's it. We now have all our models for the site set up. In order to test the models and to create some example books, we'll now run an independent script to create items of each type. It says download or otherwise create the file called populatedb.js inside of your directory in the same place, same level as the package.json. So let's grab this. Okay. So I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to do a save as to the desktop, my library tutorial, and it said that we wanted this to save this. Come on. Inside of the directory in the same level as our package.json file. Okay. There's our package.json. So populatedb.js should now be saved, and it's right there. Let's double check and make sure that it was saved in the correct format. So there it is, populatedb.js. Okay. You don't need to know how it works. It just adds sample data into the database. Enter the following commands in the project root to install the async module that will be required by this script up here. We'll discuss this in later tutorials. All right. We want it at the project root, and we're not at the root right now. So I'm going to do a cd to ... to move up a level. Now we're there. And we want to add, npm install async. All right. And as I've been doing, we'll just double check that indeed async has been added to our package.json. There it is. Okay. Run the script using Node in your command prompt, passing in the URL of your Mongo database, the same one you replaced in the insert database here. On some operating systems, you'll probably need to wrap that URL inside of quotes. So let's just grab this. We'll see whether or not we have to do that. All right. And we want to put in that URL. Should be able to, for a while at least, close genre, close book instance, close book, close author. And I'm going to grab this, and I'll leave it, it's already in single quotes, so I'll leave it in there. Copy it to the clipboard, right mouse click, and paste that in. It says author schema is not defined. Well, then we better go back and take a look at the author schema. These are in models. I better just grab all of them. Well, let's start with the author. There's author schema. Author schema. Author schema, author schema. Not sure why it doesn't like that. That looks okay. It was just a bunch of copying. Let's try it again, and I don't think this is going to matter, but you never know. I'm going to bring it up again, and I'm going to try to put it in without the single quotes. I don't think that's going to hurt me, no matter at all, to be honest with you, but well, that immediately came back, so it didn't like that at all. Populate DB line 16. It says author schema is not defined. Well, let's take a quick look. Dot models author should be there. I think I called it models and not model. Models, author, genre, book instance, and book. They are the same ones, but it's erroring. It's giving me an error message. Author schema is not defined. Genre.js. Line 12, 12.1. Schema, author, schema. Man, this is frustrating. Genre.js. Ah, that should have said genre schema right there. That was my error. All right. Whoops. Hopefully that's it for the errors, but we'll see. All right. It says this populates, okay, and it's not giving me any errors that I could see. Well, it does say there's a warning here that some authentication failed, but we'll see what goes on. Mongoose, authors, insert one, buffer, timeout. Authentication failed. Script populates, yeah. Mongo connection here, authentication failed. I'm looking for one of my files where this would have failed. Now, the only thing I can think of, and I don't know here, but we'll look, is I'll come back again with what we had here and try it without the quotes. It immediately stops, so that is not the problem. But it doesn't like something, so I'll have to see if I can track that down. It says the script should run through to completion, displaying items as it creates them in the terminal. It did not do that. Go to your database on Mongo Atlas, you should now be able to drill down into the individual collections. Well, let's look at that. That isn't what I want. Collections. And you can tell there's nothing in here. So it failed, but I'm going to stop the lecture now and I'm going to see if I can figure out what the problem was, and I'll be back shortly.